Millions walk around it every year. They raise their hands, shed their tears, and whisper prayers at its sacred walls. But very few know, the Kaaba, the holiest structure in Islam, once had two doors, one for entering and one for leaving. Today, only one remains. Why was it sealed? What secret is hidden in that wall? And who made that decision? This is the forgotten story of the Kaaba's second door. Part 1. The original Kaaba before it had only one door. Before Islam became the global religion we know today, before the golden door and marble floors, the Kaaba was a simple, ancient structure with a powerful purpose: to worship one true God. According to Islamic tradition, the very first to build the Kaaba were Prophet Abraham, and his son Ishmael, peace be upon them both. This was not just a building, it was a symbol of Tawheed, pure monotheism. Built in the desert valley of Mecca, its simplicity was a reflection of sincerity. For stone walls, no roof, and most importantly, two doors. Yes, two doors. The Kaaba wasn't always like today, where there's only one entrance. The original Kaaba had a door for entering and a separate door for exiting, placed directly across from each other. Pilgrims would walk through the sacred space, not just around it. This allowed worshippers to pass through the Kaaba, symbolizing spiritual purification, as they entered one side and left the other. Back then, the Kaaba was also at ground level, making it easy for anyone, rich or poor, to walk in freely. There were no stairs, no guards, no golden gates. It was open to everyone who came with a sincere heart. Over time, the Kaaba was damaged several times by natural disasters like floods. Because Mecca is in a valley, sudden rain could fill the area with water. The structure would often suffer damage and had to be rebuilt, sometimes by local tribes and eventually by the Quraysh. But for centuries, the design of two doors remained. This dual-door setup had deep meaning. One could enter with sins and exit cleansed, both physically and spiritually. It represented movement, openness, and flow, just like life, just like prayer, just like faith. Unfortunately, this sacred design didn't last forever. Many Muslims today don't know this, because what we see today is not the original Kaaba as built by Prophet Ibrahim. What stands today has gone through several changes, especially during the time of the Quraysh, just before the Prophet Muhammad received revelation. The Kaaba's design and its doors tell a forgotten story. A story about how Islam valued simplicity, equality, and access for all. A time when every believer could walk through the heart of worship without barriers. In the next section, we'll explore why the second door was removed, who made that decision, and how it affected the Kaaba's history forever. Part 2. The Quraysh and the redesign, why the second door was closed. By the time Prophet Muhammad was a young man, around 35 years old, the Kaaba had already stood for many centuries. It had faced natural wear, floods, and structural weakness. One major flood hit Mecca so hard that the Kaaba's walls cracked, and the building became unsafe. The Quraysh, the powerful tribe that managed Mecca and cared for the Kaaba, decided it was time to rebuild it. But this decision would change its design forever. Here's where the story takes a surprising turn. The Quraysh wanted to rebuild the Kaaba with honor. Even though they were still idol worshippers at that time, they respected the sacredness of the Kaaba deeply. So they made a key decision. We will only use pure money, no stolen wealth, no interest-based money, and nothing from gambling or bad dealings. This was noble, but it came with a problem. They didn't have enough funds. Because of the limited budget, the Quraysh had to make some big compromises in the redesign. 1. They made the Kaaba smaller. The original foundation laid by Prophet Ibrahim was slightly larger. The Quraysh reduced the size and left out a curved section, what we now call the Hijr Ismail, the semicircular area beside the Kaaba. 2. They raised the entrance. Instead of keeping the Kaaba at ground level like it was before, they built the door higher up, several feet above the ground. Why? So that only people they allowed could enter using a wooden staircase. This added control and some say even privilege. 3. They closed the second door. Here's the big change. The second door, the exit door, was completely sealed shut. The Kaaba now had only one door, placed high above the ground. From this moment on, pilgrims could no longer walk through the Kaaba. They could only enter if allowed and then exit the same way. The idea of passing through, symbolizing cleansing and spiritual journey, was lost. What's interesting is that the Prophet Muhammad was part of this rebuild. He wasn't yet a prophet, but he helped carry stones during construction. He also played a key role when there was a disagreement among the Quraysh about who would place the black stone, Al-Hajar al-Aswad, back in its position. Even then, the Prophet did not protest the changes. But years later, after Mecca was liberated, he told his wife Aisha, R.A., "If your people were not so new in faith, I would have rebuilt the Kaaba on the foundation of Ibrahim and restored the second door." So even the Prophet wanted to return to the original design, but he didn't, out of wisdom and to avoid division. And so, the Kaaba has remained with only one door, just as the Quraysh redesigned it. But the marks of the second door? They still remain, if you know where to look. Part 3. A king's wish to restore it when the second door returned. The Prophet Muhammad had always held a deep respect for the Kaaba, not just as a sacred place, but also for the original vision of its structure. As we mentioned earlier, after the Quraysh tribe rebuilt the Kaaba, they sealed the second door, raised the entrance, and reduced the size due to limited funds. The Prophet accepted these changes at the time, not because he agreed with them, but because he didn't want to cause conflict. However, after the conquest of Mecca, when the Prophet had full authority over the city, he said something very important to his beloved wife Aisha, R.A. "O Aisha, if your people had not recently left ignorance, I would have ordered the Kaaba to be rebuilt on the foundation of Ibrahim and added a second door on the back." This tells us something powerful. The Prophet wanted to restore the Kaaba's original design, including both doors, but he chose peace and unity over reconstruction. Now fast forward a few decades. A time came when someone actually tried to carry out the Prophet's wish. That person was Abdullah ibn al-Zubair R.A., a companion of the Prophet, a noble leader, and the grandson of Asma bint Abi Bakr, the Prophet's close companion's daughter. After the death of Yazid, the Umayyad Caliph, chaos spread in the Muslim world. Ibn al-Zubair took control of Mecca and declared himself caliph. One of his first actions? He rebuilt the Kaaba, not according to Quraysh's version, but according to the Prophet's dream. Under his rule, the Kaaba was restored to its full size, the Hijr Ismail was included inside, and most importantly, he added the second door back. He made both doors at ground level, one for entering and one for exiting, just as it had been in the time of Ibrahim a.s. For a brief moment in history, the Kaaba returned to its original form. But this did not last long. When the Umayyads regained power, they sent the infamous general Hajjaj ibn Yusuf to retake Mecca. During the violent siege, part of the Kaaba was damaged again. Hajjaj reported to the Umayyad Caliph Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, who ordered him to tear down the changes and rebuild the Kaaba back to the Quraysh's version, with only one door, raised entrance, and a smaller size. And just like that, the second door was sealed again. Interestingly, Imam Malik, one of the greatest scholars of Islam, later advised, "Don't keep changing the Kaaba again and again, or it will become a toy in the hands of kings." To this day, the original second door remains sealed, but its outline is still visible on the Kaaba wall, a silent reminder of a chapter lost in time. Part 4. What happened to the sealed door? A silent witness in stone. If you were to stand before the western wall of the Kaaba today, the side opposite the golden door, you would see something unusual. A smooth, rectangular outline, slightly different in color and texture from the rest of the wall. That is the sealed second door. Though closed for over 1,000 years, this door was real. It once stood tall. It once opened. It once allowed believers to walk through the house of Allah, entering from one side and leaving from the other. Now, it is just a faint memory in stone. After Hajjaj ibn Yusuf sealed it under orders from the Umayyads, no ruler has ever reopened it. It has remained untouched, out of fear, out of reverence, and perhaps out of politics. But it was never forgotten. Even today, scholars, architects, and historians agree. The Kaaba we see now is not the original shape built by Prophet Ibrahim a.s., nor the full version desired by Prophet Muhammad. Instead, it is the Quraysh's version, smaller in size with only one raised door, and the Hijr Ismail left outside the walls. The sealed door has become a symbol, not just of change, but of something deeper. It represents how history can be rewritten, even in the holiest of places. It shows how sacred architecture was shaped by politics, war, and power, not just faith. And yet, the door is still there. It hasn't been erased. It hasn't been plastered over. It hasn't been forgotten. Some say it remains visible as a reminder, a quiet echo of the Prophet's wish, a chance maybe for a future ruler to one day fulfill it. But the decision to reopen it is not simple. Scholars debate, should we rebuild the Kaaba as the Prophet wished? Or should we leave it untouched, out of respect for the sacred and fear of controversy? One thing is certain, that door, even though sealed, still calls out. It invites reflection. It sparks curiosity. It whispers the story of a Kaaba that once had two doors, and of a past nearly lost to time. Part 5, a reflection, what the Kaaba's hidden door teaches us today. The Kaaba's sealed second door is more than just a block of stone. It's more than an architectural detail. It's a message frozen in time. A message about what was, what could have been, and what still might be. For over 1,400 years, the Kaaba has stood as the center of the Muslim world. Millions face it in prayer every day. Millions more walk around it in pilgrimage. Yet how many truly know what it used to be? That hidden door teaches us that even the holiest symbols of our faith have histories, and those histories are often messy, complex, and forgotten. It reminds us that sacred structures can be altered by human hands. Even places built by prophets can be caught in the storms of politics and power. Even the wishes of the Prophet Muhammad were sometimes held back, for the sake of wisdom, timing, or unity. And yet, the outline of that door remains. It remains because truth never fully disappears.